your thoughts on who did the Panthers trade up to go get? Because, with you saying, well, the Colts are going to draft a quarterback 4th overall, they might not be happy with the 4th on that scale because somebody could trade up with Arizona to beat Indianapolis to the punch. So how do you see that playing out?
Well, I think Arizona's in the catbird seat now. I can tell you this, the Bears were convinced the Texans are taking a quarterback 2nd overall. They actually had some talks with the Texans about the Texans moving up to 1. The Texans, I don't think, were quite ready to jump. And the Panthers coming up didn't call the Texans because they didn't want to. They were so convinced that the Texans are taking a quarterback at 2 that they didn't want to alert the Texans to how serious they were about moving up. So if you're locking it in now and you're saying the quarterback's going 1, the quarterback's going 2, now the Cardinals are in a huge position of strength where they can say anybody else who wants one's got to come up and talk to us, and you can make the Colts feel really uncomfortable too, where it's you're going to have 2 off the board by the time the draft gets to you, and if you don't deal with us, it could be 3. So, I think the Cardinals are in a position of strength now and being able to move that pick, and maybe they only have to move down 1 spot. And yeah, I think for the Colts, this creates an interesting scenario where, look, history tells us, right, Rich? There may be 4 that go in the top 10. They're not going to be – all 4 of them aren't going to make it, right? It's just what the numbers tell us, what the history tells us. Maybe 2 make it, right? So let's say you're the Colts and, you say, okay, these 2 are going to make it, and those 2 are gone when you're picking. What do you do? To me, that's the scenario where Christian Ponder goes 12th overall, because the Vikings that year really liked Jake Locker, which wouldn't have worked out either. But, they wound up, sort of turning a guy who was probably a 2nd-round pick for them into the 12th overall pick, and now that guy winds up getting Leslie Frazier. That pick winds up getting Leslie Frazier fired. That's the sort of tricky situation I think the Colts are in right now, which is tough for them because, so much of this year, I think, in the way that the last half of the year was handled was based on being in position to settle the quarterback spot once and for all 4 years after Andrew Luck stunned all of us with his retirement.
So you think, again, I got about 30 seconds, Stroud, Young, Richardson?
Yeah.
What do you think?
So my understanding is the Panthers are very, very comfortable with 2 of them, and think 2 of them are worth going 1st overall. They are going to do everything with all 4 of them, and they're going to see if a 3rd or a 4th kind of jumps into that group with the 2. In which case, maybe they would consider moving back down a spot or 2.
Wow.
So that's sort of where they're at. My suspicion would be that it's Young and Stroud. I don't know that. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Ownership's going to be involved in this, and I would expect that we're going to see, the traveling band. We've seen that in the past, right? Where, Scott Fitter, the GM, and Dan Morgan, the assistant GM, and Frank Reich, and maybe the owner too, David Tepper may go along too, are in Gainesville and Columbus and Tuscaloosa and Lexington over the next 5 or 6 weeks, taking a really, really close look at each of these kids to see how they're going to set up their strategy for April.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.